Hello, Billy the Artist here, back with another drawing lesson, and this one is of J-Hope. It's the last of the BTS guys. We have done 6 already, and now we're on J-Hope. Is the last one to do, and it's just been amazing to do. If you think we've done 6 already, like I say, these are the most recent ones. Before we go any further, please do like and subscribe, tick the bell to be notified when there's new drawing lessons. And the next one after this, when we finish J-Hope, will be something different. More than likely a Harry Potter. And then there's so many more to do into the future. I'm not kidding. It's amazing. But we have done Jin. We have done Jimin. We have... I am just reaching out over here. Sorry. Oh, there we go. We have done Sugar and RM with Rap Monster with his white hair. So we've got those guys up there. Then we also have, way back, we started with Jungkook and V. So we've got all of these done, and they're in the How to Draw Portraits playlist, of which there are other subjects in there as well, and we'll keep adding more and more portraits into the future. And it's a joy. Like I say, I enjoy doing this, sharing and encouraging with you guys, which is brilliant. Do check out the How to Draw Harry Potter playlist as well. Like I say, I'll be doing more Harry Potter. And there's the general all-round How to Draw playlist, which has got lots in, over 130, 140 lessons. Again, share them like crazy. Really love doing this. Love the encouragement that comes back. What people have done is amazing. You know, just seeing people grow and develop their skills. So again, enjoy the 6 that we have done before. And we shall crack on with a number 7. Now, here we have the piece of paper. Check out the link in the cards and the description, and that's to laying down the grids. Now, it's just a very quick overview. The dimensions now are in the banner, and I've built this off this centre line, and we've got a 2 centimetre grid. So we start at 0.5 centimetre, 5 millimetres in, and then it's 2 centimetres, 20 millimetres all the way across. Again, the dimensions are in the banner, and you can see in that video me actually laying this grid down. Again, this just makes things simple. Do check out in the cards and the description How to Draw Anything Part 1. Again, I just put these shapes down on top. You can go in on a grid just doing the absolute direct line if you want to. I might do a video showing that, but I like putting the shapes down because it helps you place everything appropriately. Again, in that How to Draw Anything, I tell you, you can draw anything from a bird, a bee, a flea, a tree, a horse, a house, or anything else. And that's the whole point. I love showing you the basics, how to grow and develop. And again, we've got 6 amazing portraits already done. Now we're on the 7th. Share these like crazy with the BTS Army. That would be fantastic. And the time lapses, the little overview videos in 3 minutes where you see the whole lot from start to finish. Now though, we have the trusty 2B pencil, and we're going to work on this A4 paper, which is 21 centimetres by 29.7, 210 by 297 mil. It's just smooth cartridge paper. That's all I use. Now, I will be using 2B, 4B, possibly 8B in this drawing, as well as the putty rubbers, the kneadable erasers, and the blending stump, tissue paper, and brushes for smoothing. We'll see that, and we will get on. So, here we go. And we're going to start right up on the 25 line. So we can see here underneath, like if we start in the center, I'm just gonna, you can see we just got the top of J-Hope's hair. I'm just putting a little mark in. Now again, the grid and the lines, as I say all the time, I put in darker than you have to. And again, it's got mid-tone brown. You know, the 4 of the guys have got really dark hair. I'm just looking at the drawings off camera, and then RM was white hair. And it's, you know, like I say, so we've got a different set of tone. So we've got a different hair study today. So anyway, I'm now going to draw across. And you can see here from the 85, we've got a diagonal. We've got a triangle there. But I'm going to come all the way over. So we've got this diagonal shape that comes down. And then here we've got his hair that comes down past the 105 through the 85, dead on the cross point there. So we can bring that down. Again, I'm just drawing this shape, and you can see there's kind of a a rectangle there of that hair. That's that first part of that hair, how that comes over. So here now we've got a little V shape that's coming down. Now below the 125 line here we've got the side of his head, and this pretty much, I mean, it's just so dark that the side of his head comes down, and we've got a V. We've got a fantastic V shape there, and then it curves around, and we can see we've got this amazing C shape here. So from the top here, which is below the 45 line on the 65, we've got this C shape that comes out, comes round, comes down. Just keep looking at your reference, and you can see that big curved C shape. It's kind of in a rectangle, but then we've got this darker patch again on the 45 horizontal. We've got another C shape, and that's the hair as it comes down and around, and we can just indicate that hair going in there. So now as I come over and look on this side of the page, on the 165, on the 105 line, we've got another V, another little triangle, a little bit curved, and that comes down below there. So there you can see we've got that triangle. That's going to go up, and we've got a horizontal line there where the hair comes and kicks across. So again now we've got this going up. We've got a rectangle there for that hair again. Now we've got a kind of curved shape coming over, and that's the top of his hair as that comes over. Now we've got his ear. I'm just going to draw an oval shape. I mean, I'll draw a rectangle first. So coming down to above the 145 line, inside there we've got a rectangle shape, and then I can draw a bit of an oval. So on the 125 line here I've got a D shape, and that's the entrance to his ear canal. Again, I'm drawing these lines so that you can just about see them, but I don't want to go, because it's so light here, I don't want to draw too dark a line. Now I will draw a dark outline, but I just want the transitions to be nice inside the ear. So again, above the D shape that we just put in there, you can see we've got a kind of Y there that comes down, and then we've got a curve going up, and that's the shapes inside the hair, the ear. And above you got, so I was looking at this little bit of hair that comes off at the back. So we've got that shape that comes round. Now we want a little D here, but imagine you've got an oval hoop, and that's his earring going right round the back. Now we've got his chin that comes down, and again, because it's so soft, this is where you can do a dot to dot on the actual grid. So we're on the 145, 165 vertical. This is where it comes down, and you can see where, as you come across, we want the line to actually come. So we're coming over, and it's just above the halfway point on the 145 vertical, and then it's smack bang on the middle down here. It's only because this is so soft that I'm not drawing big shape lines. I want the transition to be fairly nice. So here we can see we've got a curve coming over. We've got a little triangle there, and his face comes up, goes across. Am I in the right place? This is what you need. This is why you check. So we go there, and then on the 185, right in the centre, his cheek goes through. We've got a little triangle there, and then it comes up. It's past. Now you can basically now do a dot to dot following the curve and the shape of the jawline coming round in his chin. And that really helps. Now, I'm going to come above the 165 line, and here, right on the centre, on the 105, we've got a little triangle, and that's the centre of above his lip and his nose. Now, we've got this nostril here, little kind of wiggly tadpole shape. Then we've got a little V for the bottom of the nose, and then his other nostril. If we do a C shape on this side, and again I'll just draw a little rectangle for the nose quickly, because we've got, and we can see here just that curve, got a D shape for the edge of the nostril there, the nose there, and this curve, like I say, that nostril curves over. Then we've got a little inverted triangle. It goes to that V shape. Well, it's a curve anyway. That's the nostril in place. Got a little shape there for the nose. Here we can see a rectangle going up. And that's the shadow on the side of his nose. And here, very lightly, we've got a triangle going up. Again, I'm putting these in quite lightly. Rectangle going over for the corner of his eye socket. Then we've got his eyebrow. Top of it goes through there. Again, it's just a rectangle that's slightly curved, going off into the shadow. Now here, underneath, we have got a bit of an eyebrow. So we can just indicate that. Now, we've got his eye. So we've got his left eye in this square to the right of the 105 line, between the 105 and 125. So we want the bottom of his eye, where his tear duct is, in this corner, and then that goes up over to this point. Now I'm going to just draw quite a light rectangle first. It's just because it's on such a diagonal gradient rather than it's like, okay, right, how do we get this working? So what I want is, I'm looking, and I've got to be careful here. So that's the top of his eye where his eyeball is, and I can see that the eyeball is quite close. We've got a little triangle there to the 125 line, and that curves up and curves over, and then comes down to the point where his tear duct is. And we want this curve coming down and around, going to the tear duct. Again, just indicating where that needs to be. Just being very careful because of the curve. Again, we've got another curve going over. So you see that's like a leaf shape. So we've got the curve of the shadow of the crease of his upper eyelid. Now we've got that horizontal reflection in the eye, and we've got a very strong highlight. So I'm just drawing a kind of little circle for that strong highlight that we're going to leave in. And then the fleshy part on the inside of that eye. Again, underneath we've got a little curved shape, which is the lower eyelid. Now we come over to the 85 vertical, You can see we've got this diagonal line coming over. And we can see here where we've got this curved shape. In fact, we need to bring that down a little bit more. Just, like I say, just want to get this right. This is your foundation. Getting these lines in is the foundation for your drawing. Now, we can bring the curve over. You can see how it touches the 125 line, comes across and then curves down through the 65 vertical. To about there. Then we've got this very dark corner of his eye that's right on the 65 vertical. Now, we go from the tear duct, like I said, it's a really nice V there. And then the curve of the eye comes around into this dark. I'm just thinking that's just, like I say, we've got the shadow. So we've got the curve that comes around, but we've got the shadow. The edge of his eye. Little square for that shadow underneath. Then we've got the curve of the lower eyelid underneath going to the tear duct. Dark right in the tear duct. Now we want curve of the iris on both sides. We've got that little reflected highlight underneath, and then we've got the strong highlight again. So I'm drawing that kind of rounded square corner shape that we're going to leave completely bright. And this is just putting these really nice simple shapes in. Now again, here I'm just indicating the where the highlight is in the hair, but I'm just drawing the lines very quickly so that I know where the highlight is before we put and we'll put more detailed lines in, but you can just see there's a band. You can even just draw a rectangle, and we will, but very lightly, so that you don't have to contradict it. If you draw it in the right direction that the hair is growing, it makes it look a lot more natural. So now we've got his lips. So we can see here on the 165 coming across to the 125 vertical, we've got a horizontal line that comes over towards the centre of his lips. But you can see how we've just got this like nice oval shape coming down through the 105 vertical, comes round to just about half and then goes up. Here we've got a little V shape in the centre of his lips. We've got the curve for the centre line. I mean, again, we can just draw a line across, but it's not accurate because there's a curved shape ever so slightly. So we're just curving the centre that comes over the 105 line. Then we've got this dark line right out to the edge. It just kind of curves up a little bit and then curves underneath. Now here we've got, it's a bit flatter where it comes over to the 105 line and then curves up. And they are very simple shapes, but we've just got to be careful because it's so light. Now, again, I'm drawing here, we've got a triangle shape for the shadow that's going to come in. Here, just a little C kind of shape, but it's a bit of a square that comes down. And then we've got the shadow that goes up the side of his head. And again, the shadow that's caused by the right-hand side of his head and his eye socket. Shadow there in the corner. Now, his neck comes down to the 205 line. You can see how it's kind of level with his chin before it starts to curve around. And again, we can just see now we've got a fairly direct line that comes down and then curves down to the 245. So come across from the 245 just above where the one crosses the 165, and we've just got a curve that comes down. And here you can see we're going to have a V shape that comes all the way down below the 265. So that's where that comes down, and there you can see we've got that simple little V, and this is where the shirt is. And then the curve goes up again to above the 205. Just trying to get that line right. So we need to come up about the centre line, and this is where the curve comes down to meet the shirt. And you can see you just got that nice V shape there. Now the shirt that comes over, we can bring that down, lower. And here you can see we've just got a triangle. And that's the collar on the right hand side. Now, the left hand side collar, we just come over, bend that down, come to a point, again just follow the curve down. And again you can see they've got this diagonal line that's just coming off, slightly curved, that's the collar coming around on the top, curve over and off to the side. Now we've just got this diagonal line here on the 225 and the 45. You can see it's right on the kind of centre point. Again, we're just kind of doing a dot to dot. And then we've got a triangle there. This looks like it's possibly his tie. We've got a little oval for a button there. Again, we've just got this dark mass coming down, which looks like it's a tie that's kind of undone a little bit. But again, we've just got a lot of dark. Here we've got the seam in the jacket. Yeah, that's the kind of jacket collar. And on this side, it's all in dark, so that'll be just completely filled in. Again, I'm just lightly indicating where the shadow is. We've got shadow following the line of the shirt collar all the way up. So again, that's using the grid and some simple shapes, and we've got the outline down very, very quickly of J-Hope. Just sharpening my 2B pencil, and now we're going to come in and we're going to start detailing up J-Hope completely. Now we're going to start with the hair. So we're coming up here in above the 65 line between the 45 and 65 vertical, and this is where we've got the hair just starting to come down, and we just want this curve coming across towards his eyes, well, his left eye. So we want this curve line, and we've got the hair as it's styled sweeping over. Then we've got this V down by his left ear, just curves past the 165 line. And we have that dark line going up. Now from the top, from the 85, we can bring this curve over, the hair coming all the way down close to his ear. Now here we've got the top of his hair where it starts to come over to the front of his face, and we've got a shape there following that curve. Again, I'm just indicating where the highlights are. and some of the stronger lines. Again, we've got here, I'm just indicating lightly, this little springy bit of hair that goes up on the 65 vertical and comes over. And then there's some that just come off the back. But again, now we want this curve coming out, down the right hand side of his hair that comes all the way down. We've got this curve that comes through the 45 vertical, then down to this V point right next to his cheek. And then there's more sprig of hair that kind of just comes out to the side. Then we've got this lighter part that comes down, curves around through the 45, but it comes down lower than the 105 horizontal, and that's where that goes up to that lighter part at the top. Then we've got this dark shade. So again, I'm using the soft flat of the pencil because I don't want a solid crisp line. And then we can see more of a shadow above, and that comes down to where the eyebrow is. So again, I'm now doing a soft edge to the eyebrow, and then where that shadow comes down through the 125 horizontal, about halfway, and then we get this crisp reflected highlight on the side of his cheek that comes down. So I'm just drawing a second line inside just to keep clear, because there is a dark shadow there, that reflected highlight. Now coming down following his cheek when we did that dot to dot. So now I'm going to be very careful. In fact, I'm just going to sharpen that so as I've got a nice sharp pencil. And just come down following the curve carefully all the way down to where his chin is. Now coming up on the other side, again we've got the line in, but I'm using the soft side of the pencil rather than the sharp point. Because I don't want too crisp and solid a line. So now his neck, coming down to the collar, all the way down to that V point where the shirt crosses over. Jacket going off. Again, just delineating the construction lines, giving a stronger line. Now here we just a little bit wiggly wobbly. And there's darker lines inside. Now if we come up and do the ear, in fact, you can see that line's absolutely fine going down off. So I'm just increasing the darkness. So now we want the top of his ear. Got the curve, you can see we've got a little V of hair there that starts the curve of the upper part of his ear. And that comes across, round, and we've got this curve coming out before it just kinks back in. Now it's fairly straight down the edge of his ear towards the bottom part of his earlobe. And then you can see where the neck comes up, and you've got the jawline that comes up, and then it just curves around through where the earring is to then move on. So So if we just draw the earring in, the hoop as it goes through, and there at the back we've got a little bit of hair showing as well. So now we've got the curved crease line in the upper part of his ear where it comes down, comes through the 125 line, and then just curves under. Now we come up and we can see where we curve up and over. Again, there's a bit of shadow in there. That's on that Y section. Now, the entrance to the ear canal, here we've got, it just points over and kinks back over just above the 125 horizontal. And then we've got this kind of little V where we've got the highlight. And you can see there where that then goes off into that crease that goes down underneath. We've got the highlight showing above. And then we've got a little kind of smile curve in the entrance to the ear canal. And then a little kind of B shape. And that'll become tone as we detail the ear up a little bit later. Again, here we've just got a little curve of flesh right next to the hair as that's curving down and around. Now we've got the upper eyebrow above his left eye. Now here we want the line comes through and past, so we've got the corner of the edge of his left eye, and you can see we've just got that little line that goes a little bit further past. We need to go up to the centre there and then curve it over down towards his tear duct at the bottom. Now again, the curve of the lower eyelid curving up, edge of the eyelid, and we've got his eyeball. Now above we've got a fold here that creases over and comes to about there, level with the edge of his iris of his centre of his eyeball. And then we've got another crease above. I'm going to use the soft flat of the pencil because that's going to be toned in, and that curves all the way over and comes towards the 125 line. Again, we can just see that curve goes past a bit more. Little triangle of shade there. Now, I'm using the flat of the pencil and I'm filling the dark, but not too dark. I'm not pressing on very hard, but I'm just filling in his eyeball and his iris. You got that reflected highlight, and it just gives us something to kind of lock onto rather than just an open eye. So again, we're now doing the same for his right eye. Again, we can come across into the dark, that crease above the upper eyelid, and that comes over and joins very dark right in the corner. And then the same, I'm just going to shade in the iris and eyeball. And that's fantastic. We've got somebody looking out at us. So, again, we've got the shade. And we've got a crease above. Again, I'm using the soft side like we did on this side, on his left eye. Using the soft side of the pencil just to indicate that crease going over. Now, the nostril. I'm going to do the left nostril first off the 105 line. And that curves over. And then the nose, it's very, very soft, the light is. It's a bit like a kind of paisley, you know, like say a tadpole shape. So we've got the under part of the nose, how it comes out from the nostril, curves around. And then we've got the right nostril. Again, just filling in that little curved shape a little bit. See, the top of that is below the lower part of the left nostril. Here we've got this C shape. For the side of his nose. Again, I'm using the soft side of the pencil for these darker lines, indicating up the right hand side of his nose into the shadows of his eye socket. Again, just curving that over. So now coming down, we've got this dark in the centre of his mouth. We start with the corner. You can see how that goes up to the 165 line. We've got this dark little triangle, and that curve comes around, just goes up a little bit and then curves for the centre part. Again, and then curves. We've got a change in direction in the centre, comes through the 105 line. Again, we're going to soften this out. And then curves over. And then comes off to the right hand side. The top of the lip curves down to the right corner. We've got this V shape. Now, the lower lip comes around, like I say, we've got this kind of straight line underneath the bottom part, and then it curves up. And that's a good, fairly decent outline down of J-Hope. Again, I'm just gently indicating with the soft side of the pencil where the main bulk of the shadows have got to go. But that is a really good outline down. Now we need to rub out all of the grid lines, and then we can start actually shading in. So again, I'm holding this paper down because I put these grid lines down quite strongly so that you can see them. And I might one day do a drawing lesson where I'll have the grid on, but very lightly, so you can see the difference, and then I don't have to obliterate the drawing like this. course it's pretty tough to do this. Again, these larger shapes inside the hair, this is a Stettler Mars plastic eraser. I've just used them for years. Find them very, very good. And you can rub out the larger areas, but where you've got detail in and around in eyes, ear, nose, mouth, that kind of thing, where there's lots of detail, you're going to rub out. It's like there. I mean, I've got a sharp, crisp line. So I can actually get close, but inside the lip, that would be a bit of a problem. And there, inside the nose, because I'm using that corner point. But once that's gone, you need a more detailed eraser to get that out. Now again, I'm using this piece of paper to rest my hand so I don't smudge the paper, smudge the drawing as I'm doing all of this. But I'm also holding the paper so that it doesn't go anywhere while I'm rubbing out like this, because it's only 4 little bits of masking tape holding the paper down. So now we're down into this shoulder area. Like I say, this is just a vast area, so I can completely remove this quite quickly. Now again, you're always going to get people saying, oh, you use grids and blah blah blah, and it's cheating and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, okay, ever since lenses were invented, artists have used them to project images onto canvases and large pieces of paper and walls to do big scenes. And Canaletto used something called a camera obscura, where he would go out, flip up a lid in a scene, a street scene, and then he'd draw what's in front of him on a glass plate with a piece of tracing paper on the top, go back and then project that onto a bigger canvas. Was he cheating, or was he actually using a technique? Because then he had to do the painting. So don't think that it's cheating, it's using skills and techniques. And if you watch any animation, so even going back to things like Snow White years ago, the early animations of Walt Disney, he actually had somebody to be Snow White and they filmed it. And then they drew over her movements that became the animation. So that's just tracing. It's not cheating, it's learning techniques. And the fact that I can teach people, nobody taught me this when I was younger, and I love seeing young people or inexperienced people who are new to drawing able to do something like this. What's thought of very complex, again I've just swept that off onto the card, what's thought as very complex is made very simple by using simple techniques. So again, this is a Mars plastic eraser but in a pen, so I can kind of get closer, better detail. And I did say in, I think it was the previous video, so I've lost my paper so I don't smudge. I was going to see if I can get an even finer one. You must be able to. But this means I can get in better, closer detail to rub out without obliterating all of my drawing. It's like things inside that ear, I'm going to lose all of that. So I need to use, and that's why I need, quite like a more tactile eraser. But I do have an electric one. So here I can get inside the shapes, remove, like see, right down by his chin. I can remove the grid lines right in the corner of the lips, centre of the nose, underneath the eyes, even in the eyes. It just means that I'm able to remove these in a much better, more accurate way without losing too much or hardly any of my underdrawing. So again, just come back in with the brush and I sweep this off onto a piece of card, so that way I'm not sweeping it on the floor. And I used to just literally sweep it on the floor and then hoover, and you're thinking I'm treading bits of spent eraser. Oh, terrible, absolutely terrible. Again, I can just sweep that in the bin. That's brilliant. Again, this is a more detailed eraser that's a battery operated one, and it can get in really tight little nooks and crannies, like inside the ear there. And I say even inside these little bits of hair lines that I've drawn. Without losing the drawing. So again, I'm coming down around the nose, over the top of the mouth, his lips, down by the eye, and again, that's all just great to be able to remove these. Now again, if you don't draw the lines on too dark, they're easier to rub out. And that's, I think, now a nicely cleaned up J-Hope. So that's looking rather good. We've got a full outline down, and just put that line back in, but we've got a full outline down, and now we can start to build up the shading. So now back in with the 2B pencil, and we are going to fill in all of the flesh very quickly. Again, I'm just going to put in a light tone. This pencil is getting a little bit short, but again, I'm holding it at the end and just letting the weight of the pencil do the work. He says, trying, hang on a second. Let's just have a go. Put it in the pencil extender. Oh, that's better. Now I can just get a much nicer swing on the arc as it goes over. Again, I'm filling all of the cheek in. And we've got some stronger highlights. Again, the strongest highlight is on the nose and just on the cheek up here and a little bit on the lip here. But I just put this first layer in. Just to cover the paper. It gives me a kind of key. It's just something that I like doing. So here we can see we've got the strong highlight. So we're going to leave that exposed. And we come down into the eye, and then we've got up into his forehead, and then underneath the hair. Now we've got just down on his neck. We can be a little bit darker. On this. And we're just filling the shape in using the flat of the pencil. Just trying to get a consistent tone. And again, you can just do cross-hatching and you can just build up. I mean, again, you can see the tones going down on the paper. But I like doing this for, you know, what is called like photorealism techniques. And then I just smooth this first layer down. I'm just using a piece of kitchen roll, tissue paper. And it just smooths those initial lines down and gives you a nice consistent base for your drawing. Again, I'm using the kitchen roll, just going across and just being careful, but just smoothing all the areas out and just pushing the pencil around a little bit, the graphite. So again, I'm just going to get a clean part of the kitchen roll and just doing up by the nose where the highlight is. Again, under the eye, just pushing the pencil around and smoothing it off. Now, I'm going to come in with the clean putty rubber. Or the cleaner one. And just pulling out that highlight up on the nose. Just dabbing it on the edge. And then highlight on the top of the lower lip. Just above the upper lip. And then this highlighted part on the upper cheek. I'm just dabbing very carefully, and they are the strongest points. So again, now on the ear we've got a kind of star shaped highlight, and then we've got the curve coming around and up into the ear. Now again, we've got a stronger highlight, or a side light down the side of the cheek, but it's not as strong as this one here, so we can be very careful. Again, where I've done the nose, I'm just doing this quickly now, and I'm literally just softening the edge using a brush. Of that highlight that I've put on. Now, coming back in with the 2B pencil, and we're just going to block in some of the darker shadows now, and the tones coming across. So we want to come across from the shadow caused by the hair into his left eye socket. There's a bit more tone in the eye there. And then underneath the lower eyelid, we've got that curve. It comes around. Now I'm resting my left hand on top of my right hand, just so as I can pivot nicely. And then we've got a darker tone in the centre caused by the hair. And we just keep looking at the reference. And we can just build a little bit to tone up. So here we're coming over the nose, over the bridge of the nose. You can see already that that eye's starting to, well, literally look out of the page at you a little bit more. We need to just build the tone up gradually and carefully. So we've got this darker tone over the forehead, coming down to the eyebrow. And it's even darker towards the edge. Again, I'm using the soft side of the pencil. A bit more tone caused by the hair that's coming across. And we've got this shadow down the side of his nose. Coming right into the corner. The right eye socket, and again it gets very dark, and we'll end up using the 4B, maybe even an 8B to build these shadows up, but I'm just trying to put in some values, some tonal values that give us three-dimensionality. Again, this curve of the lower eyelid coming round, got more dark in the eyeball. That shadow right in the corner of the eye. Again, right in the corner of the eye socket. And this is the shadow on the side of his nostril. Again, you can just build up the shadow like this, little by little, and work your way around it. It's just, you will eventually develop your own techniques. It's not like there's just one formula for doing a drawing. So again, here we've got the shadow in between his upper lip, between his top of his lip and his nose. And the shadow coming off, caused by the side of his nose. So the upper lip, it's lighter on the left hand side, and then we get this darker. Again, we'll build that up with darker tones as we go. And then we've got the strong highlight on the left hand side of his lower lip, and this lovely C-shaped curve of very dark. On the left hand side. Shadow underneath the lower lip. We've got this kind of little curve, this little C shape coming round the front of his chin. shadow coming down the chin. And again, you've got this reflected highlight off this collar here. And then coming up his cheek. Got a much darker tone. But with a reflected highlight right next to the edge. So I'm just being careful not to go over the line too much. But just building up and indicating a little bit more of the tone. Again, same, the nose causing more tone coming over the cheek. Again, this is very light. On some of these lighter areas, I would use a 2H pencil if I was doing, like, say, a very detailed pencil drawing. But it just shows you what you can just do using a 2B pencil. It's a very, very versatile grade of pencil. So here we've got the shadow underneath the nose, over the left nostril. And again, you can see now already we're just getting a much more lovely three-dimensional feel to the whole of the face. And you can just build these tones up very carefully. And you can keep doing this to a full drawing. You know, that's one way of doing a drawing and a portrait. So now I'm going to indicate the eyebrow, and I'm drawing in the direction that the eyebrow hairs will grow. But we've got that soft edge, so again I'm just using the side of the pencil coming out into the hair. So again, the same on this side. It's going to be underneath the hair. Just indicate where that eyebrow is. So now I'm just going to bring the paper in so as I'm not resting my hand on. And I want some light tone in the ear. This is a very, very lightly toned ear. And this entrance to the ear canal. And then this kind of starfish shape of light. So we can just build everything up around it and increase the tone on the skin, leaving the star-shaped little highlight there. Crease coming down. Again, I'm holding the pencil quite far away and just letting the nib, the tip of the pencil, do the work. And that's the thing, you're not writing, you are drawing, you are creating, you're making an illusion using graphite. So there's the tone in that ear. So again, now we've got more of a tone coming underneath. Then we've got a little bit of tonal shade going up the cheek to where that highlight is, just making that shape. And again, down the side of the cheek here. Just filling in tone, coming down very lightly, building up. Again, you can see we're just leaving that highlight showing. And this is the joy of a 2B pencil. You can just build up this tone. Now when I use a 2H over this, it just kind of works in conjunction. And you can build up the tone even lighter. And I'm doing this very, very quickly. If you want to do hyper-real drawings, it's going to take you days and weeks. I know of artists who do hyper-real pencil drawings, and they take 40 to 80 hours on one portrait. And that's a significant amount of time. But there you can see we're just getting that tonal value in down his cheek. So again now, underneath the neck. We want to just increase the tone as it comes down. And then we've got this darker shadow. So again, like down the side of the cheek, we've got this darker shadow coming down underneath the chin. And we will make it darker still with the 4B pencil. Some kind of anomaly in the paper there. That was a bit weird. But here I can increase the tone coming down. And then we get the tone going over the neck. And then we've got this darker bit of tone coming down the side, caused by the collar. Again, just I can increase that a little bit more. And that's giving us a lot more three-dimensionality in his face. And that's looking really good. And we need to soften that off a little bit. So I'm going to come in with this chiseled brush. I get my brushes from Rosemary & Co. online. I've used them for years. And it's what I use for painting as well as, like I say, just using these. It's just, they've made brilliant brushes that I use. And they're very, very reasonable and affordable. And some of the world's top artists, Cesar Santos, who is a brilliant portrait artist, he uses them. Casey Bow, and there are so many others. The list is rather large, and it's a joy to use their brushes. But again, you can just experiment whatever brushes you've got access to. They just need to be soft. This brush is actually very, very old. It's probably 30 years old, and so it just shows how long these can last. And so you can go to their website, Rosemary, and just Google Rosemary & Co, and you can find what they've got and what they do. They're based up in Yorkshire, the independent nation of Yorkshire in England. And they just do really, really good brushes. But again, just experiment, try, have a go. Synthetic or sable, you can do these effects. And there, I'm doing this. You can see that highlight on his cheek. is showing up quite nicely. And this is, you know, in a way getting a good hyper-real, realistic technique. Again, I'm just pushing the graphite around, and that's looking really lovely. So now what I'm going to do is, throwing the pencil around, he says. I'm now going to use the side of the pencil again. And I'm going to carefully fill in the mid-tones again, like we did on the face, but some tone on J-Hope's hair. But again, I'm drawing this, even though I'm drawing it quickly, I'm drawing it in the direction that the hair is brushed. And this is where, so you can see we've got this highlight coming over. Now there was a bit of rubber stuck on the page. So I just scratched it off with my thumbnail. Here we've got a darker triangle of tone behind his left ear. I'm just being careful. And then we got this dark line that goes up and over to the top. So again, because this hair is kind of mid-brown, we don't want to go as dark as we have on the others. Again, it's just a case of looking and thinking about tonal values. So I'm just indicating quickly where some of the darker parts are. Still just using the flat of the pencil. And then coming out from the parting, we've got the hair coming around the side. Some of the highlighted bits. Now here it's much darker. I'm not going to press on too hard because that's a job for an 8B or a 4B pencil. But it just gives me that darker tone. And again, just being careful so that, in fact, I was getting a bit close to the wood, so it just needed sharpening. So now this is going to be the very dark on the hair, but just by putting this 2B layer down, it means that everything's going to be in place and that the tone is covered. So again, now I'm just coming using the tip of the 2B pencil. I'm just drawing some of the lines, not too hard, of the hair. This is like going through where the highlight is, but it's just indicating, just twisting the pencil, getting a nice sharper tip. And it just gives me, because I'm going in the direction of the hair, the fluidity and reality of hair. You know, you're drawing it as if you're combing it or brushing it or styling it. And that's the whole point. And already you can see that's looking a little bit more three-dimensional. Now, again, come back in with the kitchen roll, because we've got no real solid highlights. Over the darker parts, we can completely fill that in, and even over the highlights. So there I'm going over, and I've just gone over where the highlights are, but lightly just push some of the pencil round, and that then gives us a completely covered area rather than just trying to do it all with the pencil. Then you come back in with the putty rubber, just keep pinching it, and where the highlights are, so you've got a sharp blade point, you can indicate some of the highlights. And this is really good on the hair. So again, this curve coming round off the centre parting, and we've got some highlights coming down above the eyebrow, that area just above there, and then just some light bits on the ends of the hair coming over, and the bottom of the hair there. Again, you can do this, you can spend a long time doing this, it depends how realistic you want it to go. And then you can come back in with the brush or the kitchen roll, and if you just feather over the bits, you still got the highlights, but you're just softening that effect, and that's really, really lovely. So now we're going to come in and we're going to start building up some detail, but we're going to do it with the 2B pencil. I'm just going to sharpen it so I've got a decent point. We're going to start with J-Hope's left eye, and we're doing the dark on the upper eyelid, coming right down into the tear duct, and then we've got this soft dark area underneath the tear duct right in the corner. I can darken that down. I've got the fleshy tone just a little bit in the eyeball underneath. So now we're doing the eyeball. We've got the iris, and then the curve coming up, we want the dark inside, so I'm going to come in with a 4B pencil. I'm really, tips just snapped off, I'm really pressing on where his pupil is for the dark, and then we've got a nice dark line around the edge of the iris. And again, I'm using the 4B pencil because it's softer and we can get a darker line. The edge of the iris on the edge of the eye, around the highlight, and then the tone on the iris on the edge. Then we've got this kind of little reflected light underneath the eye, so I'm just filling that in carefully. Then I'm just building that tone up a little bit, coming down the upper eyelash and then coming off that corner. And already you can see we've got the eye starting to appear better out of the picture. So again, right in this corner on his right eye, I'm using the 2B pencil just to start off, because I can get slightly better control because it's not as soft. And then we can just build up the darker details with the 4B. So I'm going around the highlight and going right into the corner, darkening the pupil down. And then we've got lighter tone around that reflected highlight. Now I'm coming back in with the 4B. I'm just darkening all of that area where the pupil will be at the top of the eye. The shadow caused by the the upper eyelid. Now we've got this darker tone coming around and the eyeball, so we're just bringing some more of the darker tone down. And just filling that into the corner. And then the tone that comes down the side of his lower eyelid, the crease that comes underneath. And we've got that bigger, darker tone right on that corner. So again, we want, using the soft part of the pencil, I'm not pressing on too hard. We want this crease above the eye. And the darker tone we can see. Coming over, and we've got this higher, softer tone of the upper eye, above the eyelid, again, kind of in the middle, just that tone coming over, creating the shape, the curved shape of the upper eyelid. Then we can bring this darker tone down the side. You can see we're just starting to build up some more of the tones generally around. Now you can completely detail up an area slowly and build up, but I like working around the drawing so you see it build up in a good progression. So again, now we want this dark tone going up to the eyebrow. We've got the softness, so I'm going in the direction that the hairs will grow in the eyebrow, towards that shadow. But it's all very soft. So we're just following the curve of that darker line. Just softening the edge. Just building up the tone slowly and carefully. So again, if we just come up into the hairline, we're going to come up into the shadow in the hairline here. I'm now using the flat of the pencil just to fill in that tone nicely and quickly, and then down the nose to this little triangle point at the top of the right nostril where it joins his cheek. And then we bring the shadow underneath the eye, just coming down onto the cheek. And again, we've got darker tone to build up. So I'm using the flat side, but just pressing on a little bit stronger And you can see we're just getting that nice tone starting to build up. Now if I come in and we just darken that nostril and the right nostril, just carefully softening the edge, that just gives us a little bit more lift on his face. Again, we're coming into the mouth, and filling in the dark centre line, and then on this side we just soften as it gets much darker, coming to the corner and the right hand side of his mouth. And so we've got that edge and that darker patch coming underneath the bottom lip. And then nice soft tone coming down the right hand side of his upper lip, and then we've got a little darker line at the top. Again, on the right hand side, this is all with the 4B pencil. We're now pressing on very lightly, and we've got the lower part of his lip, now we want this tone underneath his nose. We've got a slight little triangle of dark there. Got the shadow cast by his left nostril that comes over to the top of the lip, and then coming down the right upper lip. We've got this nice curve just coming around the side of the mouth here. And we can just increase. Again, just building up the tone slowly. As I say all the time, it's easier to add tone than take it away. We've got the dark in this little area on the right nostril. Coming out and around. And that's leaving that reflected highlight above and below on the nostril. And so now, again, just building up a little bit of tone at a time, as you can see the shadow cast by the nose down the side of the face. Now we want this down by the chin. Again, it's these tonal shapes that are going to bring all of the portrait together. So we're coming up underneath the lower lip. In fact, the bottom lip, I'm just putting a bit of tone over. Carefully and lightly, going right up to the edge. So now we're going to take this darker tone up the side of his cheek. And then here, going up the right hand side of his cheek to where it starts to get much darker, going towards his eye. Again, just being careful, but building the tone slowly and quickly. Again, underneath his lower lip. got that shape and we can just blend that out. And then the tone going up into his forehead, where his top of his forehead, where the hair comes over. Again, we can just build and increase this tone a little bit. Now we're coming down into the, as we come down under the hair, we come to his right, the left eye, the upper part of his left eye socket that's just caught in shadow. And the side of his hair there, just bringing a little bit of shadow over. And then the crease underneath his lower eyelid on his left eye. We've got that lovely curved shape on the top of his cheek of that shadow. And then this tone up his forehead, just darken that down. There you can see we're just getting a much more solid three-dimensional face already. Now, just carefully filling the shadow underneath his chin at the front. And then we've got this darker tone right underneath the neck, underneath the chin, on his neck, down to where the collar of his white shirt is. And we can increase this darker tone. That comes over. Again, just slowly increasing the intensity of the darker tone, filling in that shadow. Already you can see that's much more three-dimensional neck. Now we're doing the shadow caused by the left collar. How that comes across. And there we have a lot of really good three-dimensional tonal values building up on our portrait of J-Hope. So again, just coming back over onto this cheek, just lightly filling in, carefully going around, coming up the nose. Again, I'm just coming in with the putty rubber very carefully, just to straighten up. I had a few lines going over the front of the nose, but that's okay. Now I'm going to come in with the brush again, and I'm just going to keep looking at the drawing, at the reference, and I'm now just pushing this tone around. Now again, this is, you can just stick with the cross hatching if you want, but it just gives us really good soft transitions in the grading of the pencil. And it's just something that's so lovely to do, and it was something that, to be honest, I can't even think where I came across somebody doing this. But it just makes sense. It's a brush and you can brush the tone around. And it just softens it and makes it look really, really lovely. And it is like doing makeup. So get a brush and have a go. Again, just softening that shadow around. And there's a bit of darker tone coming down the neck, so you can pick the darker tone up off here and just build it up very slowly. Now again, on his cheek now, here, we've got the tone going up and we're leaving a bit of highlight towards the edge of his jaw. But we can take that tone up and we can leave the highlight up here as well. And it just builds the intensity very slowly. Now again, I'd use a 2H pencil, you can do that. And I've done it with a 2B pencil as well. But you can see we've got that lovely tone now coming around his cheek and his face. So now the bottom of his chin, leaving this little highlighted bit, but we can just bring that tone around a bit more. Going up to the ear. So now this lovely tone by the side of his face. And that's just transformed it. That's just completely transformed a load of his skin. And as we build up the intensity on some of the darks as well and pull out the reflected highlights, that's just going to make it really leap off the page. So going to come in with the 4B pencil just to put in these darker areas right underneath. And when we put the dark in on the jacket, that'll really frame this part of his face. But you can see already that that's looking really good. So now I'm just going to come in with the kitchen roll. That just smooths that quickly. And we need a lot more dark on this lip and a bit coming down. This is the, so I'm just checking, yep, that's the 4B pencil coming off the side of the lip. Underneath. But we've got this, like here, we want this much more intense shadow on the side of his head and around this eye. But we'll build that up even more when we do the hair next. So that's a lot of really good tone, making our face of J-Hope very, very good. So again, I'm just going to come back in with the brush. And that softens that really lovely. Again, I'm just doing this really quickly. You can brush very slowly. You could use a cotton bud as well. I I think I used the cotton bud on the Ariana Grande. And that's really, really lovely. So now we're going to come in with the 4B pencil and we're going to darken up the hair. And so we can see where we've got a lot of this hair coming down. So we keep drawing it in the way that it's brushed and styled. And we don't need to press on as hard as we have done with some of the other guys who've got the very, very dark hair. So I'm just drawing in the direction that the hair is actually growing. Now, you can do it in all the way, but as long as you go either backwards or forwards, up or down, it doesn't matter. So I'm drawing the curves just because it's a natural flow for my hand to kind of go that way. But then when I'm coming down, I'll twist the pencil to get it sharp. And that's how you just build up the details. So again, this patch of hair by his ear in this little kind of triangle. Just twisting the pencil to get those tones, but because we softened everything earlier and smoothed it all in, it just made it so much easier to do this work on top because we've got no bare paper shining and glaring through. So now here we've got this kind of highlighted bit. We've got the dark bit above. It goes all the way up to the top. So here we have the dark of the hair going round the corner. His hair going up at the back. We've got this dark above the ear. So now we've got that little darker patch going up. Again, I'm just twisting the pencil. Again, we can probably be better using the 2B for that because it's a bit lighter. But here we're getting those darker bits from the back of his head coming over. And the pencil's getting, it's not as sharp, but the darker bits are slightly blurred and pushed out. And when we do some of the detail work with a 2B pencil, which will stay sharper longer, this will all then really work out. So if we come down to this hair that's coming down from below the highlight, we can build that up going into the highlighted area, and then just coming down from the top. I'm resting my left hand on top of my right hand, and it's just allowing me to pivot nicely rather than just resting my hand on the paper all the time. Again, it's just techniques that you can develop yourself to learn. And you can see already we're getting much more fuller hair because we're adding these darker elements into his actual hair on and around his face. Now I'm doing this very quickly and impressionistically, and I say this all the time, if you want to do hyper realistic, you've got to spend hours, days and hours. So the hair alone would take you a couple of days. That's the length of time that these super real artists spend on the hair, whereas I'm giving you the overview of the techniques, and then it's up to you to develop them as far as you want to. But I quite like this, you know, it's like a halfway house. It looks very realistic, but it's impressionistic. It's very quick and fluid. So again, I'm still using the 4B pencil. So now we've got some dark coming out at the top, and then we've got just a little bit of dark coming out underneath. This curve that comes down and around. And then we can build up that slightly darker tone. And this is, remember, this is the 4B pencil. And we can take that tone up. But again, I'm just drawing these lines quickly and fluidly in the direction that the hair is brushed and styled. And that's how you make it look real. So now this bit all round here is going to have to be very dark. So I'm going to come in with the 8B pencil. And as I put that on, I just felt the tip snap, and I barely touched it. It's very, very soft, but you get very good dark passages. Now I like pressing in hard onto the paper, and I like that scratchy feel. So here we've got the dark following the curve of his forehead coming up, but then it needs to be softened out. Into the shade on his forehead. Oh, see, the complete piece just snapped off. I pressed on too hard, too fast. But you can see already we've got a really nice passage of dark tone. And now we really need this all the way down the side. This kind of V shape. Now again, I'm still drawing it in the way that the hair is growing. And that's what makes it look a lot more realistic. And especially if the light catches it, it would look weird if you got lines going across the way the hair is styled. So that's just something to always consider when you're doing your drawing, especially if, excuse me, hiccuping away, especially if it's something organic as hair. You want it to look as real and as natural as possible. Again, I'm just bringing some of the darker passages down. Now I'm using the soft part of the pencil, not pressing on as hard, because I want this darker passage to blend in onto his head and into his eyebrow. But I don't want that. I want a softer edge, not a hard one. So again, into the eyebrow. And then around the eye. Again, we'll build up the dark around the eye, little by little. So that's the dark curve going up. curve in his eye, the upper eyelid. That shadow right in the corner. 2 little bits of shadow. Darker shadow on the nose. Again, this is just lightly drawing on with this 8B pencil. Line underneath the lower eyelid, close to the eye. This darker line coming down the cheek. And then on the lips. Now just using the soft edge of the pencil all the way up the side of his cheek. And that just gives us really good definition. So now, using the tip as nicely as possible to get a sharp, dark line. We've got some real dark passages underneath this hair. And this is the thing, you're just building up tones. And that's looking really lovely. So now I'm going to come in, I'm going to use the blending stump. And it just allows me to help the transitions coming from the lighter brown up into the highlights and from the top down as well. And it gives us that soft little transition where we need it. And then we can come back in. So here we can put that soft transition in and blend that tone. But we've still got that catching highlight. Again, that hair that's flicking around the back. So now I'm going to come in with the putty rubber, just pinch it. So I've got a nice fine tip. And that'll really pull up the highlights in the actual highlighted area. We've got these lines coming around here. So I'm just coming over that eye. But again, all the way down on the over the left eye. We've got the tips of the hair as it comes across here, just pulling some of those back in again. The highlights. And you can see it just gives that little flicker of light that's there. Again, I'm being very impressionistic. You could do this with paint or chalk if you wanted, but I just like using these basic techniques. If you check out the portrait I did of Avicii when he sadly passed away, I used paint on his hair and on his beard. And it's the same way as some people will use white chalk on a grey background for the highlights on a portrait. And that's absolutely fine. But I like doing this and just being creative with a pencil. So now we've got those highlights going up and in the hair. And it's just great how you can see around here just the flicks of the hair coming across. So those highlights that I've brought across the front of his face just soften down using the blending stump. Whereas now I'm going to come back in with the 2B pencil. And I can carefully indicate a few of the hairs that are coming across. And then add the detail in some of the hairs that are styled and curved around on this left hand side. But the 2B pencil gives me a little bit more control, and I can do nice sharp thin lines around those darker ones, and it just fills it up and makes it look more complete. So again, now we've got this hair right down the front and going up into the highlight. So I'm just drawing where I put the highlights on. I mean, you can be very, very, you know, like there's one there, so I can go absolutely underneath each highlight very carefully. And build it up slowly. But again, I'm just doing it impressionistically, and you're seeing a really good overview. So I don't have to go exactly on each one of those highlight lines. He's got very fine wispy hair that's cascading across the centre part between his two eyes above his nose. And now in this highlight bit, I'm just twisting the pencil, keeping the point very, very sharp. And so that helps to put in some more detailed lines. And you can see we've now got really lovely highlight all the way across. And so now just squinting my eyes, looking, seeing where there's some darker passages. And again, this is just with the 2B pencil, but you can press on really hard and the pencil won't snap like the 8B. You've got to be very careful with the 6B, 8B, 9B pencils. So here we have this detail at the back of the hair. Again, lots of nice, light, wispy hairs coming out of the back of his head where the parting is. And these wispy hairs following this shape down. Just lovely. So again, I've got more of these hairs. That lovely shape at the top. Now I'm very lightly following the trajectory of his head with just some lighter hairlines coming out. They're all there on the image, and you can do them or you don't have to, but again, that's just adding to the reality. So that's now looking absolutely fantastic. So we can see we've got really good definition now in the hair, and you can just keep going as much as you want. What we need to a little bit of shadow around and underneath the earring, a little bit of tone in the earring. Just going to sharpen this because we've got these hairs coming around the ear, and then down this side bit. And so now we've got the shadow in the ear, in the ear canal, darker shadow underneath, shadow caused by the earring. Again, we can put a little couple of dark points on the chrome hoop. In the crease of his ear. Again, just coming up in that upper part of his ear. Just using the tip of the pencil lightly. This is the 2B. And then right on the top of the ear, we've got a little bit of shadow on the very upper part caused by the hair. And then this crease coming down. Now you can see we've got much nicer shape now within J-Hope's ear. And we want this tone up the side by his earlobe. And then a little shadow line coming down on the edge of his jaw, where we've got that fantastic highlight on the side. So now we come over and we've got shadow under the left nostril. Then comes across shadow intensified in the centre bit above his upper lip and below between his nose. Just bringing that shadow over gently. Then you got the curve of the nose going under, softening the edge of his left nostril. Again, just the shape of that shadow, carefully just increasing the intensity. Then his right nostril coming down, got the curve of the right nostril going right under the edge of his nostril, going into the inside part of it. And we can just increase that tonality a little bit. Again, because the 4B pencil's on there, you can do this with the 2B, and it just helps to increase it that little bit. There's the shadow. Now on the upper lip we've got a darker shadow. We've got a little reflected highlight just above the centre of the mouth, so we just leave that showing a little bit. And the same on the right side. And I'm just drawing this using the soft side of the pencil in the direction of the creases in the lips. You can see we've got that slightly darker tone on this side going over to a lighter tone on the left hand side. So now bringing the shadow down all the way across and underneath. Let me just take that over. I'm going to come in, I'm just cleaning the tip of the blending stump. And that'll allow me to really just push this pencil around on his lips a little bit nicer. And we're coming over to where the highlight is. I can really soften the edge. And then we just need to darken that down, but also pull out the highlight. So, coming onto the lower lip, where the highlights are. And above the upper lip. Now, come back in with the 8B pencil. Needs sharpening. I think I need the new one. So now we're increasing the dark in between his lips again. I just snapped the pencil. I didn't mean to, it's just so soft. You just have to be gentle, and I'm rushing. So we've got that dark right in the corner. Bringing that tone underneath and down. Just putting some of the crease lines on. Now really I should be doing this with a 2B pencil, because that's a little bit, 8B's a bit too soft and hard. We just put the crease lines on his lips. And that's looking really, really good. Next, we just need to start building up more on the details. Now, I'm going to come in with the 8B pencil, and to refine the details, we just need to whack in a lot more of the darker tone. Now, this has got quite a tip on it. So I'm just going to be careful while I just get the tip down a little bit, because if I just press on too hard, it will explode off. So and I'm using the 8B just because it's so soft and it will cover the area quickly. So here we've got his shirt and the loose tie underneath, the edge of his jacket coming down, the edge of the tie coming underneath this collar. And so now, especially down here, just using this soft, this is the last time I'll be able to use this little stubby bit of 8B pencil. And we're going right into where his cheek is. I'm just following this line out. So even then I just felt it snap. which is not a good thing. And again, this is where I say to you, I'm doing this kind of impressionistically. So I'm just filling this in quickly with broad pencil strokes. So here I'm just literally filling in tone of the jacket next to where the collar is. Just doing a bit of cross hatching, and it just makes it look really nice. Now we could have just left the lines. That's very arty. I did that on Shaku Kanemason. Didn't do anything on his clothes. It was just his head, his hands, and his cello that I did the detail work in. And just leaving the lines was absolutely fantastic. So now you can see I've just done that very quickly and very broadly. And I'm just building up the intensity created by the shadow of his head. Again, just felt it snap. And it's just completely gone. I was just pressing on way too hard at too narrow a lean angle. And yeah, that's completely died. So back in with a full new pencil. That's happy. And I'm not pressing on because I just don't want to snap the nib. And again, this is the 8B. So here we've got the tone coming down. And now you can see we've got such a lovely, I mean, just even the collar, without doing any more work on the collar, that just looks fantastic. It just looks nice and arty. But we do need a little bit of definition. So I'm going to come in with the 4B pencil. Just being careful not to touch too much of the collar, the jacket shoulder. Now coming down here, we've got a lot of tone and shadow of the shirt. That's highlighted. This part's in shadow, and this is quite light down this side. But we've got dark shadow up the inside of the collar here. Where this comes down to. And then again we've just got, we can just indicate some squiggly lines. That's the same for that collar going up. Now, just going to come in with the blending stump, just pushing the pencil around a little bit, just softens it that little bit, and then we can come in with the putty rubber. And we get that nice crisper line. I'm just dabbing on this pencil and it gives us that kind of cotton effect. That's really nice. Again, the highlight on the top of this collar, just dabbing into the shadow, and the curve going right the way up. Highlight on the edge of the collar. That's looking really lovely. Again, it's just totally framed his face. Now we're on to literally final details and highlights and things. So we're going to come in, just pulling up some of these highlights on the raised parts of his ear. Highlight at the top on the back. Again, this part down his cheek. Just bringing that down. You can see we've got very sharp highlight there. Now we're going to soften that down because it is too strong. Underneath the lip, a little bit of dabbing on the chin. I'm coming in with the clean putty rubber for these. The reason putty rubber goes from clean to dark is it literally pulls off the graphite and fills itself with the graphite. That's why it goes that funny grey colour. So sometimes you can actually find you're putting graphite back down onto the page. So now, just indicating that highlight on the top of his cheek, side of the nose. Again, we don't want to pull off too much, so I'm going to come back in with the dirty putty rubber. Highlights on the upper part of his eye. Just highlighting some of the creases that are coming out. Fold that comes down. Goes above the eye. Again, on this side, we can just pull up the highlights. There on the corner of his eye. Now if we come in with the brush, can soften that going up the side of his jaw. Now, again, these highlights around his eye, we can just soften the edges with the brush. But these ones, they're more in shadow, so we can just really soften them using the blending stump. I've got a bit of black and it just wouldn't blow off. Now that's looking rather lovely, but again I'm just going to spend some time with a 4B pencil and we're going to intensify some of these shadows. I'm using the soft tip. That's allowing me to gently increase the darks. Now, here on his eye, we've got a much darker crease. It's coming up and over. We need to darken that down, the reflected highlight in his pupil and his iris. And then we've got this tone underneath his eye. And then this tone, this shape. Again, same thing over his left eye. We've got a darker crease line. Second one very close to the first. That creases over. And then we've got this darker line above. That really curves right the way over. Now, right in the corner, got that tone that goes out, down by the tear duct. We've got a darker line, and then that goes around and under the lower eyelid. Now, again, these are just details that you can pick up and build on, and it's down to you to decide when it's all over. So now I'm coming in with the 8B because we've got a much darker shadow here. It's coming off the corner of his right eye. Darkening the nostrils. So again, I'm just coming in with the putty rubber. There's a stronger highlight on the top of his right nostril. But I just want to come in and soften it down a little bit. And then come in with the 8B pencil. And we can make this soft shadow much more intense. Again, the same coming down from underneath the nose, and the same off this lip. Got a sort of like here, we've got a really nice soft blur by the side of his mouth and above the upper lip. That's really nice. Now, I'm going to come in with the blending stump. And this is where we can just really push the pencil around quickly. Just build up those darker tones. And right in this corner. Going up to the eyebrow. I need the 4B pencil because I need to just bring the eyebrow over a little bit. You can see how it comes up from here, from past the corner of the tear duct. And then again, darkness coming up the nose. coming down into this little passage on his chin. And then coming up the side of his cheek, we've got this lovely curve with this reflected highlight on the side. Going up into this darker patch where we've got this much more intense reflected highlight as well. So now just bringing some of that tone from his eyebrow underneath the hair over. Down by the shadow caused by the hair on this side. And then this tone underneath his neck, just softening that over. Bringing that down, just cleaning it off a little bit so as I can do a softer transition here. Now again, just building up the intensity down by the shirt. And up by the collar there. That's looking really, really lovely. Just underneath the eye. This bit around the nose. Now again, this is literally just faffing until you are content. So I'm using the brush just squinting my eyes, just to push the pencil around until I'm happy. So here, coming down to his lower jaw, it's a little bit darker, blending that cheek. The tone going up, leaving this highlight. That's really, really lovely. Softening the chin. And as I say, these are just literally final highlights and details. So we've got the hairs coming down again over his eye. And there's, like I say, there's some that are coming right over the eye, how it's styled. And then just a few more, just gently indicating those coming across the eye. Again, we've got a reflected highlight around the left nostril. Then just soften it down, either with the brush or the blending stump, I'm just going to use clean putty rubber. Just to pull off some of that. Now that's gone a little bit too much. That's the whole point, you can just then soften it down. Now the highlight right up the nose. Top of the lip. Highlight on the lower lip. And then in his eyes, just pull those up a little bit. And a little bit of brightness on those eyeballs. 2B pencil. And that's just finishing up the lips. And I think, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. They really are. You can just work around as much as you can. But there comes a point where you just have to go, yep, that's it. So I'm just literally working these last bits on this highlight on his nose. Just softening down. This is with a 4B pencil. Just deepening the shadow down a little bit on that side. But I'm going to call that a day. I hope you've enjoyed that. I've had a really, really good time. We've now done all 7 members of the BTS and we've finished with J-Hope, and it's just been a joy and a pleasure. I hope you've had fun. Please do share them with the BTS Army, and I'll see you in the next drawing lesson. Take care. Ta-da.